The night air was thick and humid as Kaido walked alone through the dimly lit backstreets of Kyoto's antique district. His worn sneakers scuffed against the cracked pavement while the distant hum of the city faded behind him. He shoved his hands deeper into his jacket pockets, exhaling a visible breath into the cool autumn air. The old street lamps flickered sporadically, casting dancing shadows across the narrow alleyways. A sudden, intense light exploded from somewhere ahead, brilliant white and blue like a camera flash from a dying star. Kaido threw his arm up to shield his eyes, but it was too late. The light seared through his eyelids, burning into his retinas. He stumbled backward, gasping, his vision dissolving into a blinding white void. The world tilted violently beneath his feet. His knees buckled and he collapsed onto the cold ground, the rough asphalt scraping against his palms. The light vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving behind only darkness. Complete, absolute darkness. Kaido blinked rapidly, panic rising in his chest. He couldn't see anything. Not the street lamps, not his own hands, not the buildings around him. Nothing. I can't see, he whispered, his voice cracking. He touched his face frantically, pressing his fingers against his eyelids. They were open, they should be working, but everything was black. His breathing became shallow and rapid as he scrambled backward until his back hit a cold stone wall. The world spun around him and consciousness slipped away like water through his fingers. Kaido woke to the sound of birds chirping somewhere in the distance. Morning light filtered through his half-open eyes, soft and golden. He blinked slowly, his vision swimming back into focus. He was lying on his back in a narrow alley, his head resting against a discarded cardboard box. The sky above was pale blue with streaks of white clouds. Slowly he sat up, wincing at the ache in his skull. He pushed himself to his feet, steadying himself against the wall. The alley looked the same as last night, the same chipped brick, the same overflowing dumpster, the same faded graffiti, but something felt different. He shook his head, trying to clear the fog from his mind. His stomach growled loudly, reminding him he hadn't eaten since yesterday afternoon. Kaido shuffled out of the alley and onto a busier street. A small convenience store stood on the corner, its bright fluorescent lights spilling out onto the sidewalk. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his wallet, counting the few coins inside, just enough for a cheap rice ball. He sighed and walked toward the store entrance. He stopped in front of the store window, staring at the displayed items. A row of packaged snacks sat neatly arranged on the shelves. His eyes landed on a simple onigiri wrapped in plastic. The price tag said 150 yen, but as he stared at it, something impossible happened. A small, translucent window appeared in his vision, floating just above the rice ball. Kaido froze. The window was semi-transparent, glowing faintly with a pale blue light. It displayed text in a clean digital font, grade common, value 150 JPY, rarity 1/100, authenticity 100%. He blinked rapidly, expecting it to disappear. It didn't. He rubbed his eyes roughly and looked again. The window was still there, hovering like a hologram. I'm still asleep, he muttered, shaking his head. He turned away from the window and looked at a bottle of water on the adjacent shelf. Immediately, another window appeared above it, grade common, value 120 JPY, rarity 1/100, authenticity 100%. His heart began to pound. He looked at a bag of chips, grade common, value 98 JPY, rarity 1/100, authenticity 100%. No, Kaido whispered, backing away from the store. His hand went to his forehead, feeling for a fever. This isn't real, I hit my head, I'm hallucinating. He turned and stumbled down the street, his eyes darting frantically from object to object. Every single thing he focused on displayed a floating price window, a bicycle chained to a rack, a vending machine, a stray cat. He stopped walking. His mind raced, trying to find a logical explanation. Maybe he'd been drugged, maybe he was in a coma, maybe the light from last night had damaged his brain somehow. None of the possibilities made sense. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath, counting to 10. When he opened them again, the windows were still there. I've completely lost my mind, he said out loud, his voice hollow. A passing woman gave him a strange look and hurried past. He didn't notice her. He was too focused on the windows that now seemed permanently burned into his vision. Every object, every person, everything he looked at was tagged with information. Values, grades, rarity, scores. Kaido stumbled to a nearby park bench and collapsed onto it, his head in his hands. His thoughts spiraled into chaos. How was he supposed to live like this? How was he supposed to function with this constant visual noise? He looked at his own hands. Nothing appeared. He looked at his shoes. Nothing. He looked back at the vending machine across the street. The window reappeared instantly. I can only see it when I focus on something, he muttered, finally noticing the pattern. The windows only appeared when he deliberately concentrated on an object. If he looked away, they vanished. He tested it again, staring at a nearby street lamp. A window flickered into existence, grade common, value 45,000 JPY, rarity 1/100, authenticity 100%. He looked at a passing car, grade common, value 2,800,000 JPY, rarity 1/100, authenticity 100%. He focused on a tree, grade common, value 0 JPY, rarity 1/100, authenticity 100%. He stared at an old man sitting on a bench, grade common, value 0 JPY, rarity 1/100, authenticity 100%. No information about the person themselves, just the object's worth. A strange thought crossed Kaido's mind. What if he could use this? What if he wasn't crazy? What if this was some kind of gift? He remembered the light last night, the searing brightness that had blinded him. Maybe it had changed something inside him. Maybe it had given him a power. He laughed bitterly at the absurdity of it. Stop it, he told himself firmly. You're not a superhero, you're a broke college dropout who can't even afford a proper meal. He stood up from the bench, his legs shaky. He had to get home, he had to sleep this off. Maybe in the morning, everything would be normal again. He started walking toward his apartment, his footsteps heavy with exhaustion. Back in his tiny, cramped apartment, Kaido collapsed onto his futon. The room was barely big enough for a bed, a small desk, and a closet. Dust motes floated in the sliver of afternoon light that crept through his single window. He stared at the ceiling, his mind still reeling. The floating windows had followed him home. Every object he looked at continued to display its price. He turned his head and looked at his old, broken clock on the desk. A window appeared, grade common, value 0 JPY, rarity 1/100, authenticity 100%. He looked at his tattered backpack, grade common, value 200 JPY, rarity 1/100, authenticity 100%. He looked at a stack of unpaid bills, grade common, value 0 JPY, rarity 1/100, authenticity 100%. Frustrated, he sat up and slammed his fist against the thin wall. The impact barely made a sound. He slumped forward, his head hanging low. Tears of exhaustion and confusion pricked at his eyes. He had no one to call, no one to help him figure this out. His parents had disowned him when he dropped out of university. His friends had all drifted away. Hours passed, the sun set and the room grew dark. Kaido hadn't moved from his spot on the futon. He was numb, barely processing the reality of his situation. Finally, he forced himself to stand and walk to the bathroom. He flicked on the harsh fluorescent light and stared at his reflection in the small, cracked mirror above the sink. His reflection stared back at him, a young man of 22 with messy black hair, dark circles under his eyes, and pale skin. He looked exhausted, broken, and defeated. But as he stared at his own face, something strange happened. A window appeared in his vision, floating beside his reflection. No, it was inside the mirror itself, a glowing interface. Kaido leaned closer to the mirror, his breath fogging the glass. The window displayed text, system interface active, focus on target to view value, upgrade pending. His heart hammered against his ribs. He reached out and touched the mirror with trembling fingers. The interface shimmered and new text appeared. Status, user connected. Ability, value perception, level 1. System, interface, Kaido repeated, his voice barely a whisper. It sounded like something from the manhwa he used to read as a teenager. The ones where ordinary people suddenly gained extraordinary abilities. He backed away from the mirror, shaking his head. No, that was fiction, that wasn't real life, but here it was, glowing in his mirror. He looked at his own hand in the mirror. A window appeared above it, grade common, value 0 JPY, rarity 1/100, authenticity 100%. He stared at his face again, grade common, value 0 JPY, rarity 1/100, authenticity 100%. He watched as the interface faded slightly, waiting for him to do something. He took a deep breath and focused on the mirror itself. A new window appeared, grade common, value 500 JPY, rarity 1/100, authenticity 100%. He looked at his toothbrush, grade common, value 80 JPY, rarity 1/100, authenticity 100%. He looked at the faucet, grade common, value 2000 JPY, rarity 1/100, authenticity 100%. The system interface in the mirror remained, pulsing softly with pale blue light. Kaido stared at it for a long moment. Then an idea slowly formed in his exhausted mind. He remembered the antique shop down the street, the one with all the dusty old items that nobody ever bought. What if he could use this ability to find something valuable? The next morning, Kaido woke with a pounding headache. He immediately looked at the mirror. The system interface was still there, patiently waiting. He groaned and dragged himself out of bed. He had no food in his apartment, no money, and no plan. But he had this strange new ability. He had to test it. He had to know if it was real. He threw on his jacket and walked to the small antique shop at the corner of his street. The shop was owned by an elderly woman named Mrs. Tanaka. Her store was cluttered with items from decades past, clocks, vases, paintings, jewelry, and countless other treasures. Most of them looked like junk to the average person. But Kaido now saw something else entirely. He pushed open the door and a small bell chimed above him. Mrs. Tanaka looked up from behind her cluttered counter, her eyes crinkling into a warm smile. Kaido-kun, it's been so long. Are you looking for something special today? Kaido nodded, not trusting his voice. He began walking slowly through the aisles, focusing on each item one by one. A ceramic vase caught his eye. He focused on it and a window appeared, grade common, value 2000 JPY, rarity 1/100, authenticity 100%. He moved to the next item, an old pocket watch, grade common, value 3500 JPY, rarity 1/100, authenticity 100%. He kept walking, his excitement slowly waning. Everything was just common. Then he saw it, a small, dusty painting tucked away in the corner, partially hidden behind a stack of old books. The painting depicted a mountain landscape with a crimson sunset. It looked old, very old. Kaido crouched down and focused on it intently. A window appeared and his breath caught in his throat. The information was different from everything else he'd seen. Grade rare value 850,000 JPY, rarity 67,100, authenticity 95%, estimated age 1875. Kaido's hands began to tremble. He looked around quickly to make sure no one was watching him. Mrs. Tanaka was still at the counter, absorbed in her newspaper. He focused on the painting again. The window remained glowing softly. 850,000 yen. He stood up slowly, trying to keep his expression neutral. He walked back to the counter with the painting tucked under his arm. "How much for this?" he asked, his voice carefully steady. Mrs. Tanaka glanced at the painting and smiled dismissively. "Ah, that old thing, my husband picked it up at a flea market years ago. It's probably just a cheap reproduction." "I like the colors," Kaido said, shrugging with practiced casualness. "How much?" Mrs. Tanaka waved her hand. "Take it for 5,000 yen if you really want it." Kaido kept his face expressionless, but his heart was pounding so loudly he was sure she could hear it. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the last of his money. It wasn't enough. "I only have 3,500 yen, he said, his cheeks flushing with embarrassment. "Can we?" Mrs. Tanaka laughed warmly. "For you, Kaido-kun, I'll make an exception. 3,500 yen is fine." Kaido wanted to collapse with relief. He handed over the money, his hands still trembling. Mrs. Tanaka wrapped the painting in brown paper and handed it to him with a smile. Kaido clutched the painting to his chest and walked out of the shop as quickly as he could without running. The moment he was outside, he let out a shaky breath. He had just bought a painting worth 850,000 yen for only 3,500 yen. He leaned against the wall, his legs weak. This wasn't a hallucination. This was real. This was life-changing. He rushed back to his apartment and immediately began researching where to sell the painting. His old laptop wheezed to life, its fan whirring loudly. He typed in the description of the painting, "A mountain landscape, crimson sunset, estimated 1875. Within minutes, he found a contact, an art dealer named Mr. Yamamoto. He sent an email with photos and arranged a meeting for the next day. Kaido barely slept that night. He kept staring at the painting, checking the window again and again. The information remained the same. Rare, 850,000 yen, 95% authenticity. He couldn't believe it. He was going to be okay. He was going to pay off his debts. He was going to have money for food, for rent, for everything. He laughed out loud in his empty apartment. The next morning, he met Mr. Yamamoto in a quiet cafe. The art dealer was an older man with silver hair, round glasses, and a sharp suit. He examined the painting with practiced care, using a magnifying glass and checking every inch of the canvas. Kaido watched nervously, sweating despite the cool air conditioning. After a long silence, Mr. Yamamoto set down his magnifying glass and nodded slowly. "This is authentic, a genuine take to landscape from the Meiji era. Where did you acquire it, if you don't mind me asking?" Kaido forced a nonchalant smile. "I found it at a flea market. I had a feeling it might be something special." Mr. Yamamoto laughed softly. "A good eye, very good eye. I'd like to purchase it for 750,000 yen. I can transfer the money to your account immediately." Kaido wanted to scream with joy, but he kept his cool. He nodded calmly and said, "That sounds fair." Mr. Yamamoto wrote him a check and they parted ways. Kaido walked out of the cafe staring at the check in his hands. 750,000 yen, more money than he'd ever had in his life. He couldn't stop grinning. He felt like a character from the manhwa he'd read as a kid, the ordinary nobody who discovers a hidden power and transforms his life. He was finally going to be someone. He bought himself a proper meal for the first time in months. A hot bowl of ramen with extra chashu served at a small restaurant he'd always walked past but could never afford. He ate until he felt like he might burst, savoring every single bite. He looked at his reflection in the restaurant window. The system interface appeared faintly in his peripheral vision. But now it didn't scare him, it excited him. The next few weeks were a blur of activity. Kaido visited every antique shop, flea market, and second-hand store in the city. He used his ability to scan everything, quickly identifying anything of real value. He developed a rhythm: walk in, browse casually, focus on each item, find something rare, buy it cheap, sell it to a dealer for 10 times the price. He became more confident, more daring. His apartment began to change. New clothes appeared in his closet. His fridge was stocked with food. He paid off his overdue rent. He could finally breathe, but with success came attention. The local antique dealers started noticing the young man who kept showing up with incredible finds. They began to ask questions. One particular dealer, a sharp-eyed man named Mr. Sato, grew suspicious. He ran one of the largest antique stores in the district. Kaido had sold him several items over the past weeks, each one significantly undervalued and then resold for a massive profit. Mr. Sato didn't like the implication that a young nobody was outsmarting him. "I've been in this business for 30 years, Mr. Sato said one afternoon, blocking Kaido's exit from his store. "And I've never seen someone with luck like yours. You're either the most talented appraiser in Japan or you have some kind of secret. Which is it?" Kaido maintained his calm expression, though his heart was racing. "I just have a good eye, Mr. Sato, that's all." Mr. Sato studied him for a long moment, his eyes narrowing. "A good eye, right? Well, I'm sure you won't mind if I look into your recent acquisitions. I'd hate to find out you've been involved in something illegal." Kaido forced a laugh. "Of course not, feel free to check anything." He walked out of the store, but he could feel Mr. Sato's gaze burning into his back. That night, Kaido stared at his reflection in the mirror. The system interface pulsed softly beside his face. "I have to be more careful," he murmured to himself. "People are starting to notice." He looked at the new information available to him now. A sub-menu had appeared in the interface, upgrade available, focus ON system interface to expand abilities. He focused on the words, the interface shifted, revealing new options. Ability upgrade level 1 right arrow level 2, cost 1 million JPY, benefit identify multiple items simultaneously, increased value perception range. Kaido's eyes widened. He could upgrade his ability, he could make it even more powerful. He looked at his bank account balance. He had 950,000 yen, not enough yet. The next day, Kaido went to a high-end auction house. He'd never been to one before, but he'd heard about them. The kind of place where wealthy collectors bid on rare items worth millions. He wore his best clothes, a new suit he'd bought with his recent earnings, and walked in with his head held high. He looked around at the items on display. A glass cabinet held a delicate porcelain vase. Kaido focused on it. Grade rare value 3,200,000 JPY, rarity 78,100, authenticity 98%, estimated age 1720. His pulse quickened, a vase worth 3.2 million yen. He looked at another item, a wooden statue, grade rare value 1,800,000 JPY, rarity 72,100, authenticity 96%. There were dozens of treasures here. He began participating in the bidding. He was careful, strategic. He didn't bid on the most expensive items, drawing attention to himself. Instead, he focused on the undervalued ones, the items that fewer people were interested in but were still worth a small fortune. He won 3 auctions that day. His bank account grew by another 2 million yen. The auction house owner, a dignified woman named Ms. Kawamura, approached him at the end of the event. "You have remarkable taste, young man. I don't believe I've seen you before. Are you a collector?" Kaido shook his head politely. "Just an enthusiast. I appreciate fine craftsmanship." Ms. Kawamura smiled warmly. "Well, I hope to see you at our next event." Kaido walked out of the auction house feeling invincible. He had 3 million yen in his account, enough to upgrade his ability, enough to change his life completely. He went home that night and stared into the mirror. "Upgrade ability," he said, focusing on the system interface. A window appeared. "Confirm upgrade to level 2, cost 1 million JPY. "Yes," he said firmly. The interface glowed brightly and he felt a strange sensation like electricity running through his veins. The world seemed to sharpen around him. When he looked at his reflection, new text appeared. System interface active. Level 2 achieved. New ability batch scan. Value perception range extended. He tested it immediately. He stood in the center of his small apartment and focused on everything in the room at once. A dozen windows appeared simultaneously, each displaying the value of different objects. His desk, 2,000 yen. His futon, 5,000 yen. His old laptop, 15,000 yen. The cracked mirror, 500 yen. He could see everything at once. This was incredible. But with great power came great attention. Word of the mysterious young man with the incredible eye for antiques spread through the district. Other dealers became curious, some became envious, a few became hostile. Kaido found himself constantly looking over his shoulder. He'd made powerful enemies without even realizing it. One evening, he was walking home through a quiet alley when 3 men stepped out from the shadows. They were large, rough-looking, clearly hired muscle. The leader, a bald man with a scar across his cheek, stepped forward. "You're Kaito, right? The kid who's been cutting into Mr. Sato's business?" Kaido's blood ran cold. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said, keeping his voice steady despite the fear twisting in his stomach. The scarred man laughed. "Sure you don't. Mr. Sato wants to have a word with you. You're going to come with us nice and quiet." He reached out to grab Kaido's arm. Kaido's instincts kicked in. He ducked and ran. He sprinted through the alleys, his heart pounding in his ears. The men chased after him, their heavy footsteps echoing off the walls. Kaido's lungs burned as he pushed himself faster. He wasn't an athlete. He'd spent most of his life sitting at a desk. But fear gave him speed. He dodged through narrow gaps, knocked over trash cans to slow them down, and finally lost them. He collapsed against a wall, gasping for breath. His entire body was shaking. This wasn't a game anymore. People were dangerous. People could hurt him. He'd been so focused on the money that he'd forgotten about the risks. He had to be smarter. He had to be more careful. He had to protect himself. The next morning, Kaito made a decision. He needed allies. He couldn't do this alone. He went to the one person he thought might understand, a young woman named Mika who worked at a small bookstore near his apartment. She was quiet, observant, and always seemed to know more than she let on. He'd spoken to her a few times, always vaguely, always nervously. "Can I help you?" Mika asked as he approached the counter. She had short brown hair and sharp eyes that seemed to see right through him. Kaido took a breath. "I need to talk to you about something strange, something I can't explain." She raised an eyebrow but didn't laugh or dismiss him, she simply nodded. He told her everything. The light, the ability, the system, the antiques, the money, the danger. He expected her to call him crazy, to throw him out of her store. Instead, she listened quietly, her expression unreadable. When he finished, she leaned forward. "You really can see values like that, any object?" He nodded. "Show me," she said simply. She pulled out a small pendant from under her shirt, an old silver locket. "Tell me what this is worth." Kaido focused on the locket. A window appeared. Grade rare, value 420,000 JPY, rarity 66,100, authenticity 92%, estimated age 1880. He read the information to her. Mika's eyes widened slightly. That locket belonged to my great-grandmother. It's been passed down through our family. My grandmother always said it was worth something, but nobody ever believed her. You're telling me it's worth 420,000 yen? Kaito nodded. She smiled slowly. Well then, I think I believe you. Mika became his partner. She helped him research items before he bought them, ensuring he didn't make mistakes. She also helped him stay safe, keeping an eye out for suspicious people following him. Her calm, analytical mind balanced his impulsive nature. Together, they became an unstoppable team. But the danger was far from over. Mr. Sato's attacks grew bolder. He began spreading rumors that Kaito was a fraud, that his acquisitions were fakes. Some of Kaito's clients started pulling out of deals. Others demanded proof of authenticity. Kaito had to fight harder to maintain his reputation. He spent his nights researching, verifying, double-checking every single item. It's like he's trying to destroy us, Kaito said one evening, slumped over his desk. Mika sat across from him, studying a stack of documents. He's threatened. You're a nobody who's suddenly making him look foolish. Powerful men don't like that. Kaito rubbed his tired eyes. What do I do? You keep going, Mika said firmly. You prove them wrong, you become so successful that they can't touch you. You've got this ability, Kaito. It's not a curse, it's a gift. Use it. Her words fueled him. He sat up straighter. She was right. He couldn't let fear stop him. He'd come too far to give up now. The next day, Kaito found something that would change everything. At a small shop in a rundown part of town, hidden beneath a pile of junk, he discovered an old inkstone. It was covered in grime and dust, almost invisible to the naked eye. But when he focused on it, the window that appeared made his heart stop. Grade legendary, value 23 million JPY, rarity 98-100, authenticity 99%, estimated age 1560. Kaito nearly fell over. 23 million yen, this wasn't just rare, this was legendary. He'd never seen anything like it. His hands shook as he picked it up, cradling it like it was made of glass. This was the find of a lifetime. He bought it for 10,000 yen. The shop owner didn't know what he had. Nobody did. Kaito walked out with the inkstone hidden in his bag, his heart racing with excitement and terror. If anyone found out he had this, the entire antique world would come crashing down on him. He had to be careful, so careful. He brought it to Mika's apartment. She stared at the inkstone in disbelief. Legendary, 23 million yen. Kaito, do you know what this means? This is the kind of item that makes careers. This is the kind of item that destroys people. He nodded grimly. Which is why we can't let anyone know we have it. But keeping secrets wasn't easy. Mr. Sato had eyes everywhere, and someone had seen Kaito leaving the shop with that inkstone. Within days, the rumors started. The mysterious young collector had found something priceless, something worth millions. Suddenly, everyone wanted a piece of Kaito, and that was when the real danger began. The auction world was vicious. It was a world of secrets, lies, and backstabbing. Kaito found himself caught in a web of conspiracies. Some collectors wanted to buy the inkstone from him, others wanted to steal it. A few wanted to destroy it, and him, just to prove he wasn't as special as he seemed, he had to move fast. He attended a private auction for high-end collectors. The room was filled with the wealthiest people in the city. They wore expensive suits and glittering jewelry. They spoke in hushed tones about art, history, and money. Kaito felt out of place, but he held his head high. He was here to prove himself. He brought the inkstone with him, displayed in a protective case. When he revealed it, the room fell silent. Every eye was on the ancient artifact. It was beautiful, jet black stone with subtle silver veins polished to a mirror shine. Kaito watched as the auctioneer described its history, its rarity, its value. The bidding started at 20 million. The price climbed higher and higher. 22 million, 24 million, 26 million. Kaito's heart pounded. This was more money than he'd ever dreamed of. The bidding finally stopped at 28 million yen. The winner was a tall, elegant woman in a pearl necklace. She smiled at Kaito as she handed over a check. He bowed politely, barely containing his excitement. But as he left the auction house, a hand grabbed his arm. He turned to see Mr. Sato, his face twisted with rage. You think you've won, Mr. Sato hissed. You think you can just waltz into my world and take everything from me, but I've got news for you, boy. This isn't over, not by a long shot. Mr. Sato's fingers dug into Kaito's arm. I'm going to prove you're a fraud. I've hired the best appraisers in the country. They're going to examine every item you've ever sold, and when they find a single fake, I'll destroy you. You'll lose everything. Kaito yanked his arm away. They won't find anything, he said, his voice cold. Because everything I sold is real. Mr. Sato's face twisted into a cruel smile. We'll see about that. Enjoy your money while you still have it. He turned and stalked away, leaving Kaito standing alone in the cold night air. Kaito's hands were shaking. He just made a powerful enemy, the most powerful enemy he'd ever faced, and now he had to prove himself. The next few weeks were a nightmare. Mr. Sato's appraisers combed through every item Kaito had ever sold. They checked authenticity, provenance, and documentation. They questioned dealers, collectors, and auction houses. Kaito was constantly on edge, waiting for the moment when they would find something wrong, something he'd missed. Mika helped him stay calm. You haven't made any mistakes, she said firmly. Everything you've sold is authentic. Your system doesn't lie. They won't find anything. Kaito nodded, but he couldn't shake the feeling of dread. What if his ability was wrong? What if the system was flawed? What if everything was about to fall apart? And then it happened. One of Mr. Sato's appraisers claimed that a vase Kaido had sold was a forgery. The accusation sent shockwaves through the antique community. People who had bought from Kaido suddenly panicked. They demanded refunds. They threatened lawsuits. Kaido's reputation was crumbling. He had to act fast. "We have to prove he's wrong," Kaido said, pacing furiously in his apartment. Mika was reading through documents, her brow furrowed. "The appraiser claims the vase is from the wrong period, but we know it's genuine. We have to find the original documentation, the provenance, something that proves it's real." Kaido spent days searching. He visited the original shop where he'd bought the vase. He tracked down the dealer who had owned it before. He contacted experts and historians. Finally, he found it, a dusty old catalog from a museum exhibition in the 1950s listing the vase as part of a rare collection. Authenticity confirmed, provenance established. He presented the evidence at a meeting of the local Antique Dealers Association. Mr. Sato was there, his face red with fury as Kaido laid out his proof. Every piece of documentation was meticulously examined. The appraisers were forced to admit their mistake. The accusation was retracted. Kaido had won, but the battle was far from over. Mr. Sato's humiliation only fueled his anger. He became more desperate, more reckless. He began spreading rumors about Kaido's past, about his failed studies, his broken family, his debts. He tried to paint Kaido as a common criminal, but Kaido had grown stronger. He fought back with facts, with evidence, with the truth. And slowly the tide began to turn. Other dealers started coming to Kaido, not as enemies but as potential allies. They saw his success, his integrity, his talent. They wanted to work with him. Kaido realized that he couldn't fight alone anymore. He needed to build a network, a team of people he could trust. He started small, bringing in a few reliable contacts. Miko was his first partner, but soon others joined. A young appraiser named Haruki who was tired of being overlooked. A security expert named Yuki who knew how to protect valuable items. A lawyer named Kenji who could handle the legal complications. Together, they formed a small but powerful team. They called themselves the Value Finders. The Value Finders worked together to buy and sell high-end antiques, using Kaido's ability to identify treasures and the others' expertise to manage the logistics. They became a force to be reckoned with in the antique world. Mr. Sato's influence began to wane. The more successful they became, the more desperate he grew. One night, Kaido was walking home when a car pulled up beside him. The window rolled down, revealing Mr. Sato's cold, calculating eyes. "I have a proposal for you," he said, his voice oily. "Work with me, we'll be unstoppable. I have the connections, you have the talent. Together we could control the entire market." Kaido stared at him in disbelief. "After everything you've done, all the lies, the threats, the attacks, you want me to work with you?" Mr. Sato smiled thinly. "Business is business. Old grudges shouldn't get in the way of profit. Think about it." He rolled up the window and drove away, leaving Kaido standing in shock. Kaido told Mika about the encounter the next day. "He can't be serious," he said. "After everything he's done to destroy me, he expects me to just forgive him?" Mika shook her head. "He's desperate, he's losing control, he thinks he can buy his way back to the top, but he doesn't understand who he's dealing with." "I don't trust him," Kaido said firmly. "I could never trust him, but maybe," he paused, an idea forming, "maybe I can use this to my advantage. If he wants to work with me, maybe I can use that to find out what he's really planning." Mika's eyes glinted with approval. "That's dangerous but smart." Kaido agreed to meet with Mr. Sato. They sat across from each other in a neutral location, a quiet restaurant far from any of their usual haunts. Mr. Sato laid out his proposal, a partnership in which Kaido would identify valuable items and Mr. Sato would handle the selling, taking a significant cut. Kaido listened, nodded, and asked questions. He learned a lot during that meeting. He learned about Mr. Sato's connections to overseas buyers. He learned about the secret auctions that happened in private homes. He learned about the dirty underbelly of the antique world, the forgers, the smugglers, the thieves. It was a dangerous world, and Kaido was walking right into it. "I'll think about it," Kaido said, finally standing up. Mr. Sato smiled confidently. "Don't take too long, opportunities like this don't come often." Kaido walked out of the restaurant, his mind racing. He had a plan now, a dangerous, reckless plan, but if it worked, he would not only destroy Mr. Sato, he would become the most powerful figure in the antique world. The next day, Kaido shared his plan with Mika. "I'm going to pretend to agree to his partnership. I'll feed him information, good information, but not the best. I'll make him think I trust him, and then when he's most confident, I'll expose him. I'll prove to the entire world that he's a fraud, but I need your help." Mika was silent for a long moment. Then she smiled. "You're reckless, you're impulsive, and you're brilliant. I'm in." She leaned forward. "But we have to be careful. Mr. Sato is dangerous. He's powerful, and he won't hesitate to destroy you if he suspects what you're doing." Kaido nodded grimly. "I know, that's why I need you watching my back." So the game began. Kaido met with Mr. Sato regularly, pretending to work with him. He shared some of his discoveries, making sure to pass on items that were valuable but not game-changing. Mr. Sato grew more confident, more trusting. He started sharing his own secrets, his buyers, his methods, his plans. Kaido listened and remembered everything. But Mr. Sato wasn't stupid. He began to suspect something was wrong. Kaido's information was good but not great. The items he provided were profitable but not earth-shattering. Why would someone with Kaido's talent hold back? Mr. Sato started watching him more closely. He hired people to follow Kaido to listen in on his conversations. One evening, Mika spotted a tail following them. "We've got company," she whispered, her eyes darting to the rearview mirror. Kaido's heart sank. They'd been discovered. He had to act fast. "Lose them," he said urgently. Mika took a sharp turn, speeding down a narrow alley. The tail followed. Another sharp turn, another alley. Finally, they escaped. "We can't keep doing this," Mika said, her voice tense. "He's on to us. If we're not careful, he'll destroy us before we can destroy him." Kaido nodded grimly. "Then we need to finish this now before he makes the first move." He formulated a plan, a final decisive move that would end Mr. Sato's reign once and for all. Kaido arranged a meeting with Mr. Sato's biggest buyer, a wealthy international collector named Mr. Park. He presented Mr. Park with an item he'd supposedly found, a rare scroll from the Edo period. Mr. Park examined it carefully, his eyes wide with excitement. "This is magnificent, I must have it," Kaido smiled. "I can arrange that." But the scroll wasn't just a valuable antique, it was a carefully constructed trap. Kaido had added a hidden marking, a tiny symbol known only to authenticators that proved the scroll was genuine, but he'd also arranged for a rival appraiser to be present at the sale. Someone who would publicly verify the scroll's authenticity, exposing Mr. Sato's entire network. The day of the sale arrived. Mr. Sato was there, gloating, thinking he'd won. Mr. Park was there, his eyes gleaming with greed. The appraiser was there, ready to reveal the truth. Kaido stood in the shadows, his heart pounding. This was it. This was the moment that would define everything. The sale began. Mr. Park examined the scroll, nodding approvingly. Mr. Sato made his pitch, his voice smooth and convincing. The appraiser stepped forward. He looked at the scroll, then at Mr. Sato, then at Kaido. His eyes narrowed. Then he said the words that would change everything. "This scroll is a fake." The room fell into chaos. Mr. Park's face contorted with rage. Mr. Sato's confidence crumbled. He started shouting, accusing everyone of conspiracy. But the appraiser held up the scroll, pointing to the hidden marking. "This is proof of forgery. This scroll was never authentic. You've been selling fakes, Mr. Sato, fakes to some of the most powerful collectors in the world." Mr. Sato sputtered, trying to defend himself. But it was too late. The evidence was overwhelming. His buyers turned against him, his partners abandoned him, his empire crumbled in a matter of minutes. He was arrested for fraud and conspiracy. His name was ruined, and Kaido walked away, finally free. Kaido and Mika celebrated that night in a quiet ramen shop. They laughed, they ate, they felt the weight of the past months finally lift from their shoulders. "We actually did it," Mika said, shaking her head in disbelief. "We took down one of the most powerful men in the industry." Kaido smiled. "We did because we believed in ourselves." The next day, Kaido looked at his reflection in the mirror. The system interface pulsed softly, waiting for him to make his next move. He had 50 million yen in his account, a successful business, a loyal partner, and the ability to see the true value of anything in the world. He was no longer the helpless, broke young man from the beginning. He was someone powerful, someone successful. But he also knew that this was just the beginning. There were other dealers to face, other challenges to overcome, other treasures to discover. The world was full of hidden value waiting to be found, and Kaido had the power to find it all. He looked at his reflection and smiled. "All right," he said softly. "What's next?" The system interface flickered. A new message appeared, new ability unlocked. Level 3 available, cost 10 million JPY. Benefit, value perception extended to living organisms, understand people's potential. Kaido's eyes widened. He could see the value of people now, not just objects. That was incredible, that was life-changing. He looked at his reflection again, focusing on his own face. A new window appeared, grade rare, value potential 95-100, current status growing, future potential significant. He stared at the words, his heart swelling with pride. He was rare, he had potential, he was becoming something extraordinary. He turned to Mika, who was washing dishes at the sink. He focused on her and a window appeared, grade rare, value potential 90-100, current status stable, future potential significant. He smiled. She was rare too, they were perfect for each other. He walked over and hugged her suddenly. "What's this for?" she asked, laughing. "Just, thank you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "For believing in me, for staying with me, for everything." She hugged him back. "You're welcome, but you better not be getting all soft on me," he laughed. "Never, I'm going to be the greatest antique dealer in Japan, and you're going to be right there with me." The next few months were a whirlwind of success. Kaido and his team grew larger, more powerful. They expanded their operations, reaching out to other cities and countries. They became known as the most reliable antique dealers in the business. Their reputation was impeccable. Their success was unstoppable. But Kaido never forgot where he came from. He remembered the night he'd collapsed in that alley, blind and terrified. He remembered the days of hunger, the nights of despair. He remembered the people who'd helped him, the people who'd believed in him, and he made a promise to himself he would never forget, he would always be grateful. He started giving back. He donated to shelters, to schools, to programs for struggling young people. He offered advice to aspiring dealers. He shared his knowledge, his wisdom, his experience. He became a mentor, a leader, a figure of inspiration. And he continued to grow, to learn, to become more. One evening, he was standing on the roof of his new apartment building, looking out at the city skyline. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. He looked at the lights below him, the millions of objects scattered across the city. Each one had a value, each one had a story. He focused on the city below, activating his level 3 ability. Thousands of windows appeared in his vision, each one representing a person, each one displaying their potential. There were common people, rare people, and even a few legendary people. The city was filled with hidden value, hidden potential, and he could see it all. He smiled. This was his city. This was his world. He'd been given a gift and he'd used it to transform his life. But he knew that the real value wasn't in the money, the success, or the fame. The real value was in the connections he'd made, the people he'd helped, the lives he'd touched. He looked back at his own potential window. Grade rare, value potential 98-100, current status flourishing, future potential extraordinary. He nodded slowly. Extraordinary. That was what he wanted to be, not just successful, not just powerful, but extraordinary. A force for good in a world that desperately needed it. He descended from the roof and walked back into his apartment. Mika was there waiting for him. Another long day? She asked, smiling. Always, he replied, but it's worth it. She handed him a cup of tea. I've been thinking, she said slowly, about what's next, about where we go from here. Kaido took a sip of the tea, savoring the warmth. I've been thinking about that too. I think we need to expand. Internationally, there's a whole world of treasures out there and we've barely scratched the surface. Mika nodded. I agree, but we need to be careful. The international market is dangerous. There are people out there who will kill for what we can do. I know, Kaido said, his voice serious. Which is why I'm not going alone, I'm taking the team. Haruki, Yuki, Kenji, everyone, we're going to build something bigger, something global, something that will change the entire antique industry. Mika smiled proudly. That's my partner, always aiming for the stars. The team met the next day to discuss the plan. Haruki was excited, Yuki was cautious. Kenji was practical. Together they debated the risks and rewards of expanding internationally. They discussed markets, contacts, and potential threats. It was a long meeting, but by the end they had a solid plan. They were ready. The first step was research. They spent weeks studying the international antique market, learning about the key players, the major auctions, the hidden treasures. Kaido used his ability to scan through catalogs, identifying valuable items before anyone else could. It was like having a cheat code in a video game. He could see the finish line before anyone else even started. Soon they started making contacts, reaching out to international dealers, collectors, and experts, building relationships, establishing trust. It was slow work, but it was solid, and with each successful deal their reputation grew. Soon they were known not just in Japan but across the world. Kaido found himself on a plane for the first time in his life. They were flying to New York, where the biggest antique auction in the world was being held. The city was massive, overwhelming, but also thrilling. Kaido could feel the energy of the place, the potential hidden in every corner. He couldn't wait to start exploring. The auction was held in a grand hall filled with people from all over the world. Kaido and his team took their seats, scanning the room. He focused on the items on display, his eyes wide with amazement. There were treasures here that he'd only ever dreamed of seeing, and some of them were being undervalued, massively undervalued. The Chinese vase in the corner, he whispered to Mika. It's worth 20 times the starting bid. Mika's eyes widened. Are you serious? He nodded. We need to bid on it aggressively. They did. They won the vase for a fraction of its true value. It was the first of many victories that day. By the end of the auction, Kaido had acquired items worth over 100 million yen. The other bidders were stunned. Who was this unknown young man from Japan snatching up treasures like they were candy? Rumors started flying. Some were impressed, others were suspicious. But Kaido didn't care. He was playing the game and he was winning. As they left the auction hall, a man approached them. He was tall, sharp-dressed, with cold, calculating eyes. Kaido-san, he said, his voice smooth. My name is Ryu. I'm a collector. I've been watching you. You have an incredible eye for value. I'd like to work with you. Kaido exchanged a glance with Mika. What kind of work? Kaido asked carefully. Ryu smiled. I have a proposition, a private auction, invitation only, the most valuable items in the world. I'd like you to appraise them. Kaido's heart raced. A private auction with the most valuable items in the world. This was the kind of opportunity he'd been waiting for. I'm interested, Kaido said, but I need details, time, place, security. Ryu nodded. I'll send you an invitation, but I must warn you, this world isn't for the faint of heart. Some of the people involved are dangerous, extremely dangerous. Kaido's blood ran cold, but he didn't back down. I can handle myself. Ryu's eyes glinted with amusement. We'll see, expect my invitation within a week. He turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Mika grabbed Kaido's arm. This is dangerous, you know that, right? He nodded slowly. I know, but it's also the opportunity of a lifetime. We can't just let it pass. They flew back to Japan, their minds still buzzing with excitement and fear. The invitation arrived exactly 1 week later, delivered by a private courier. It was an elegant card embossed with gold lettering. The auction would be held in 3 weeks in Macau. Invitation only, security was strict. No cameras, no recordings, no outsiders. Macau, Haruki said, studying the invitation. That's risky, it's a city full of gamblers and criminals, anything could happen there. Kaido nodded. Which is why we need to be prepared. Yuki, I need you to set up security. Kenji researched the legal implications. Mika, you're with me? We're going to be careful, but we're going to take this chance. The weeks leading up to the auction were intense. The team worked tirelessly, preparing for every possible scenario. Kaido used his ability extensively, scanning for information about the other guests, the venue, the items. He learned that many of the world's richest and most powerful people would be there. This wasn't just an auction, it was a test. The day of the auction arrived. Kaido and Mika flew to Macau, their hearts pounding with nervous excitement. The venue was a luxurious hotel hidden away from the main city. Security was tight, every guest was searched, every bag examined. Kaido felt like he was entering a fortress. The auction room was breathtaking. Chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting warm light over the assembled guests. The items were displayed in glass cases, each one more valuable than the last. Kaido walked slowly through the room, his eyes scanning everything. His heart raced as he realized the true scale of what he was witnessing. A single Japanese sword from the 14th century worth 1 billion yen, a Roman sculpture from the 1st century worth 2 billion, a mysterious manuscript written in an unknown language priceless. Kaido's ability was working overtime, windows flooding his vision with values and grades, legendary items everywhere. He could barely breathe. Ryu approached them, a smile on his face. "Welcome, Kaido-sen, I trust you're impressed." Kaito nodded, not trusting his voice. "The items are incredible," Ryu nodded. "I knew you would appreciate them, there's something else I want to show you." He led them to a private room away from the main auction. In the center of the room was a single object, a small, ornate box made of dark wood. Ryu gestured to it. "This is the main event, the item I really need your help with." Kaido focused on the box. A window appeared and his blood ran cold. Grade, mythical, value undetermined, rarity, authenticity. He'd never seen anything like it. "What is this?" Kaido asked, his voice barely a whisper. Ryu's smile widened. "We don't know, that's why I need you. You have an incredible ability, Kaido-san. I've heard about it. The rumors are true, aren't they? You can see the value of anything. I need you to tell me what this is worth. I need you to tell me if it's real." Kaido's heart pounded. His ability had never failed him before, but this box was different. It defied his perception. He couldn't read it, he couldn't understand it, and that scared him more than anything else had ever scared him. He tried to focus again. The window flickered, changing slightly. Grade, mythical, value, requires level 4 upgrade. "I can't read it," Kaido admitted, his voice shaking slightly. "I need to upgrade my ability." Ryu's eyes narrowed. "Upgrade? What do you mean?" Kaido sighed. "My ability has levels. I need to reach a higher level to understand certain items like this one." Ryu studied him for a long moment. "How much does it cost?" "It's expensive," Kaido said. 10 million yen. Ryu laughed softly. "That's nothing to me. I'll provide the money, you upgrade your ability, and you tell me what this box is worth." "Deal." Kaido exchanged a glance with Mika. She nodded slightly. "Deal," Kaido said. Ryu shook his hand firmly. "Good, we'll proceed tonight." Kaido went back to his hotel room and stared into the mirror. The system interface appeared, waiting for him. "Activate level 4 upgrade," he said firmly. A window appeared. "Confirm upgrade to level 4 cost 10 million JPY, he confirmed. The interface blazed with light and Kaido felt a surge of energy through his body. His mind expanded, sharpened. He could feel his perception deepening. He looked at his reflection. System interface active. Level 4 achieved. New ability, value perception of unknown objects. Mythical items now readable. He smiled. This was it. He was ready. He returned to the auction room and stood before the box again. He focused all his energy on it. The window appeared, clearer than ever. Grade, mythical, value, soul-bound, rarity 100-100. Authenticity 100%, function, value enhancement, properties. When bound to a user, it amplifies their ability level by 1. Kaido read the text slowly, his mind reeling. This box wasn't just a treasure, it was a key to unlocking even greater power. It was worth more than any amount of money. He turned to Ryu, his face carefully neutral. "It's real, very real, and it's worth more than you can imagine." Ryu's eyes gleamed with greed. "How much? Name your price." Kaido shook his head. "It's not for sale, not at any price. This item is beyond money. It's a tool that could change the world." Ryu's face twisted. "You're lying, you're trying to keep it for yourself." Kaido stood his ground. "I'm telling you the truth, this item cannot be bought, it can only be earned, and right now it's choosing me, I can feel it." He reached out and touched the box. A warmth spread through his hand, a connection forming. The box accepted him. Ryu stepped forward, his face contorted with rage. "You think you can just take it? This is my auction, my item, my world. You're nothing but a kid with a lucky ability. Give me the box." He lunged forward. Kaido stepped aside, pulling the box close to his chest. Mika rushed forward, blocking Ryu's path. "Stay back," she said, her voice cold. The room erupted into chaos. Other guests rushed in, drawn by the commotion. Security guards surrounded them, trying to separate everyone. Kaido clung to the box, protecting it with his body. He could feel its power flowing through him, strengthening him. His ability was growing stronger by the second. This was the greatest treasure he'd ever found. In the chaos, Kaido and Mika managed to escape. They ran through the hotel, their footsteps echoing in the empty corridors. Behind them, they could hear shouting, running, angry voices. They didn't stop. They didn't slow down. They burst out into the night and disappeared into the streets of Macau. "We can't stay here," Mika gasped, catching her breath. He'll find us, we need to go back to Japan. Now, Kaido nodded, clutching the box tightly. I have a plan, a way to protect us, but I need time. They found a small hostel and checked in under false names. That night, Kaido studied the box, trying to understand its secrets. The box was ancient, beautifully crafted, with intricate carvings that seemed to move in the dim light. It hummed with a faint energy pulsating like a heartbeat. Kaido focused on it, using his ability to probe deeper. Grade mythical value soulbound, rarity 100-100, authenticity 100%, function value enhancement. Properties. When bound to a user, it amplifies their ability level by 1. He already knew the basics, but he needed more. He focused harder, pushing his ability to its limit. A new window appeared, secondary property symbiotic connection, user and box become one, ability evolves based on user's growth, soulbound, cannot be stolen, cannot be transferred, he gasped. The box was tied to him now, forever. Mika watched him with concern. What is it? What did you find? Kaito looked up, his eyes wide. This box is part of me now, we're connected, it can't be taken from me, it can't be stolen, it's mine, and I can use it to become even more powerful. He looked at the box, then back at her. I'm going to use this to change everything. The next morning they flew back to Japan. The team was waiting for them, their faces tense with worry. Kaido told them everything about the box, about Ryu, about the danger they now faced. Haruki's face was pale. This is huge, this is bigger than anything we've ever faced. Ryu isn't going to give up, he'll come after you. Kaido nodded. I know, which is why we need to prepare, we need to become stronger, faster, better. Kaido started using the box immediately. He studied it every moment he could, unlocking its secrets. The box seemed to respond to him, adapting to his needs. His ability grew sharper, more precise. He could now see the value of things he never could before, even abstract concepts like knowledge and skills. He could literally see the value of a person's abilities. He trained with the team, honing his new abilities. He could now identify not just the value of objects, but also the value of strategies, plans, and actions. He could see which moves would lead to success and which would lead to failure. It was like having a perfect foresight. He became almost unbeatable. But power came at a price. The box's energy was intoxicating. Kaido found himself becoming obsessed with it, spending all his time in its presence. Mika noticed the change. You're losing yourself, she said one evening, her voice filled with concern. This box is consuming you, you need to step back, find balance. Kaido shook his head. I can't, this is who I am now, this is my destiny. Mika's words hurt him, he knew she was right, but he couldn't stop. The box was too powerful, too addictive. He felt like he was becoming something greater than human, something that could change the world, but deep down he knew he was losing touch with himself. He was becoming a monster. One night he looked at his reflection in the mirror. The system interface was brighter than ever, pulsing with energy, but something was wrong. His own face looked different, harsher, colder, more distant. He focused on himself. Grade, legendary, value, potential 100-100. Status, overloaded. Warning, soul-bound object recommends balance. Balance, the word echoed in his mind. He'd been so focused on power that he'd forgotten about balance. He'd forgotten about what truly mattered, his friends, his team, his connection to the world. He looked at the box, still glowing faintly on his desk. He reached out and touched it. I need to find balance, he said softly. I need to remember who I am. The box seemed to pulse in response. A new window appeared, balance restored, soul-bound object active, recommendation usability for good not for power, value increases with positive actions. Kaido smiled, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. He wasn't losing himself, he was finding himself. The next morning, Kaido gathered the team. I need to apologize, he said. I've been consumed by this power, I've forgotten what really matters, you guys are my family, my team, and I need to lead us forward in a way that's good for everyone, not just myself. Mika smiled, tears in her eyes. That's the Kaito we know and love. They started anew, focusing on ethical business practices and positive impact. Kaido used his ability to find treasures and donate them to museums, to help struggling families, to fund education and art programs. He became a philanthropist, using his power for good. The box seemed to approve, glowing brighter than ever, empowering him even more. Months passed, Kaido's reputation grew beyond the antique world. He became known as a visionary, a leader, a force for positive change. The team thrived, expanding their operations across Asia. They faced challenges, setbacks, and enemies, but they always persevered, united by their shared purpose. One day, Kaito received an unexpected visitor. Ryu stood at his office door, his face somber. I've come to apologize, he said. I was consumed by greed. I wanted that box so badly I lost my way, but I've seen what you've done with your power. You've inspired me. I want to join you. Kaito was stunned. You want to work with me? Ryu nodded. I want to be part of something bigger than myself. Kaito studied Ryu with his ability. A window appeared, grade rare, value potential 85-100, status changing, future potential positive, he smiled. Welcome aboard. Ryu's eyes widened with surprise. Just like that, Kaito nodded. I see potential in everyone, and I believe in second chances. The team grew even stronger with Ryu's expertise and connections. They expanded into new markets, discovering treasures all over the world. Kaito's ability evolved further, allowing him to see value in unexpected places, ideas, inventions, even relationships. He became a master of seeing the invisible potential in everything. But with growth came new challenges. International syndicates began to take notice of the young man who could find value anywhere. They tried to recruit him, threaten him, even kidnap him. Each time Kaido and his team fought back, protecting each other and their mission. They were more than a team, they were family. One night Kaido stood on the roof of his building looking out at the city. The box was in his hands, glowing softly. "We've come so far," he said to Mika, who stood beside him. "From a broke nobody to this, it's hard to believe." Mika smiled. "You did it. Your ability, your determination, your heart, you changed everything." "I couldn't have done it without you," he said, turning to face her. "You believed in me when nobody else did. You saw potential in me when I was just a mess of doubts." Mika blushed slightly. "I just saw a person trying to survive, and I knew you could thrive." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the city lights twinkle below. Kaido looked at his reflection in the building's window. The system interface glowed faintly beside his face. System interface active, level 4 achieved, user status flourishing, recommendation continue ethical growth. He smiled. He was finally at peace. He was exactly where he was meant to be. The next day, Kaido announced a new project. He was going to establish a foundation to help young people discover their potential just like he had discovered his. The foundation would provide scholarships, mentorship, and resources to help others find their own hidden value. The team was excited. This was the legacy Kaido wanted to leave. He dedicated himself to the foundation, spending his days and nights building it from the ground up. He met with educators, philanthropists, and community leaders. He used his ability to identify promising young people, helping them unlock their potential. The foundation quickly became known as one of the most impactful new organizations in the country. Years passed, Kaido grew older, wiser, and more fulfilled. He'd achieved everything he'd ever dreamed of and more. The box remained with him, a constant companion, but it no longer consumed him. It was part of him, a reminder of how far he'd come and how much further he could go. He often thought about the night he'd collapsed in that alley, blind and terrified. He thought about the light that had changed everything. He didn't know where it came from or why it had chosen him. But he knew one thing for certain: it had given him a gift, and he'd used that gift to make the world a better place. One evening, Kaido stood before the mirror in his house. The system interface flickered softly, waiting for his next command. He smiled. "I have everything I need," he said softly. "A family, a purpose, a legacy." The interface pulsed warmly in response. He looked at his reflection, and for the first time he saw not just potential but fulfillment. He was finally home. He walked out of the room and into the living room where the team was waiting for him. Mika was there, her arms crossed, her eyes full of affection. Haruki was showing off a new artifact he'd just acquired. Yuki was securing the premises. Kenji was reviewing contracts. Ryu was discussing new partnerships. It was chaos. It was family. It was perfect. "Are you coming?" Mika asked, holding out her hand. Kaido smiled and took it. "Always." They walked together into the heart of their shared enterprise, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The boxes and treasures around them glowed with potential, just like the people who had gathered to find them. This was the real value. This was everything. And so Kaido's journey continued, an endless adventure of discovery, growth, and connection. His ability had changed his life, but it was his heart that had made him truly valuable. He'd found his place in the world, and he was determined to help others find theirs. In the end, that was the greatest treasure of all. The city hummed with life beneath the stars. Kaido's story became legend, whispered among antique dealers and dreamers alike. He was the one who saw value in everything, the one who never gave up, never lost hope, never stopped believing that the world was full of hidden treasures waiting to be found. And he knew with absolute certainty that this was only the beginning. The world was vast and full of wonders. There were still countless treasures to discover, countless lives to touch, countless potential to unlock. He was ready. He was always ready, because his potential was unlimited and his heart was unbreakable. Kaido smiled as the night wind blew through his hair, the stars above him reminding him that the universe was vast, beautiful, and full of infinite value. His journey would go on, and he would never stop searching for the extraordinary in the ordinary, because that was what he was meant to do. That was his gift. That was his legacy. As the city slept peacefully, Kaido stood firm, a beacon of hope and possibility. His ability, his family, his purpose, all of it had come together to create something extraordinary. He was Kaido, the value seeker, the treasure hunter, the man who discovered value in everything. And he knew deep in his heart that he would never truly be alone. The system interface flickered one last time, displaying a final message. Level 5 unlocked, cost 50 million JPY, benefit value perception of destiny, recommendation continue ethical growth, potential unlimited, user status extraordinary. Kaido laughed softly, more to learn, more to grow, more to become. He wouldn't have it any other way. He walked back into the warm light of his home, surrounded by the people he loved, ready to begin the next chapter. The journey was never truly over. It was always just beginning, and he was ready for all of it.